Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your guy Rudy SKC, and welcome to a brand new video. I know it's been a week since I last uploaded. I'm sorry, I was gone, but what a week it has been in Detroit sports, and I'm super happy to be back here talking to you guys. I mean, it's been a crazy week from the Pistons doing so much winning to the Lions taking care of business against San Francisco on Monday Night Football. They have a big game coming up tomorrow against the Vikings. To Jaden Ivey's unfortunate injury. We'll get to that one a little bit later. And the Red Wings also turning things around seemingly behind Todd McClellan. They just beat the best team in the NHL today. Obviously won't get into too much Red Wings, and we'll save the Lions content for tomorrow after hopefully the Lions win against the Vikings. So I want to mainly take today to recap the Pistons win against the Timberwolves today and also take a look at what's transpired over this last week so we can have some kind of future outlook going forward. Looking at today, the Pistons were able to take care of business against the Timberwolves 119-105, and honestly, this game was kind of a blowout from start to finish, but I want to say this game was extremely exciting. So there's a couple points that I want to touch on, right? Anthony Edwards, insane game today, first of all. Got to tip my cap off to him. I mean, he had 10 threes today. It's absolutely crazy. He set his own career high as well as a Little Caesars Arena record for most points inside the arena. That's got to change, by the way. We got to talk about that. We cannot have, other than Blake Griffin, I think everyone else in the top 5 list is from an away team that scored on the Pistons. That's just been indicative of how bad we've been over the past decade. Or last 5 or 6 years since LCA opened up. But that's got to change soon. And hopefully with Cade and Ivy, when he comes back, we can get some of those games to, some of those records to go our way. But that's just something that was on my mind. But crazy performance by Ant-Man. This is exactly what the NBA needs to see, in my opinion. You have 2 number 1 picks going back and forth. Mentioned my guy, Anthony Edwards. But our guy, our superstar, Cade Cunningham, 40 points, 9 assists. What a game by him. He was going back and forth with Anthony Edwards. Every time it seemed like the Timberwolves were going to make a run, Cade Cunningham responded. And you could see that there's a clear difference in the offense when Cade Cunningham's running the show compared to, when Marcus Sasser's in the game, where you have those second unit minutes. And I know it's going to get some taking used to because of Jaden Ivey's injury, right? We're not seeing Cade Cunningham or Jaden Ivey consistently be the primary ball handler at all times. That's either going to go to Marcus Sasser, Asar Thompson at times, even Malik Beasley at times. But that's something that the Pistons are going to have to live without until Jaden Ivey can get back. And like I mentioned earlier, I definitely want to get to Jaden Ivey's injury, what that means for him, as well as what that means for the team overall going forward. But man, what a game. You have 2 superstars, 2 number 1 overall picks going back and forth, and this is great for the NBA in terms of marketing. I keep saying this out loud, and maybe the NBA isn't taking me serious. Put the Pistons on national television, man. I mean, basically every game. I know this game was a blowout, but every game, it's entertaining basketball. Unless the refs are completely against us, which, by the way, today, they were terrible again, especially early on in the game. There's so many bad calls at the rim, and there's so many delayed calls. That's what I hate most about the NBA sometimes, is when referees call fouls 2 or 3 seconds after they happen. It's like they're waiting for the ball to go in, and if it goes in, they don't call it, and if it doesn't, they reward the team with the foul. I think that's a terrible way to officiate games. That's 100% got to be better. And it's been super inconsistent at times as well. I think there are so many fouls today, like especially ones on Jalen Duren, where I was scratching my head. I had no idea what the referees were seeing. Jalen Duren, he played, in my opinion, the stats may not show it, but he played a great game today, in my opinion. He did great on the defensive side of the ball. His effort on the offensive end, that's exactly what I want to see. I don't care if the stats say what, I don't know, like 6.6 rebounds. He got in foul trouble. That's completely, to me, on the referees. They had a bad whistle out for Duren tonight. That's great. That's exactly what we want from Duren. But yeah, so the NBA needs to get rid of that referee problem, that whistle problem. That needs to stop. But other than that, this is perfect marketing. You have a number 1 overall pick in Cade Cunningham, who's surrounded by shooters, and 2 insanely athletic young wings in Asar Thompson and Ron Holland, who every time it's transition, you don't know. Another highlight could happen today, maybe a top 10 play of the year with Cade throwing the ball off the glass to Asar. I actually slept through the first quarter today, so I didn't get to see that live. If you guys follow me on Twitter, which make sure you do, it's at Ani for Dubs, Rudy SKC on Twitter. Make sure you do that. But I tweeted it out, and I looked. The first thing I see on Twitter is Cade off the glass to Asar Thompson. And that was a crazy highlight that happened in the game. And, that's the type of stuff that's going to pull viewership for the NBA. And that's why I'm saying you got to put the Pistons on national television. Every game is entertaining. Something is going on. I mean, it was even more entertaining when Jaden Ivey was there. But still, every transition, every huge game from Cade Cunningham, Malik Beasley just having 3-point flurries late in the fourth quarter. The Pistons are officially an entertaining basketball team, and the NBA's got to capitalize on that. And games like this, where you have a up-and-coming team like the Pistons versus a team that's been in the playoffs a few times or battle-tested, maybe you've had some struggles so far this year in the Minnesota Timberwolves because of, adjusting to the cat trade that went on. This is great for the league, in my opinion. 2 number 1 overall picks going back and forth. That's exactly what we need. Moving on to some other stuff. Talking about the game more specifically, again, you won the turnover battle. I think the Pistons had 12 turnovers. The Timberwolves had 19 or something. That's perfect. That's exactly what you need. And I think the main culprit behind that was Asar Thompson for us. So today, because Jaden Ivey has been out, we started Asar Thompson. And I'm glad we started Asar Thompson today, because Asar Thompson on defense was crazy. There was a point where I think in like a span of 4 or 5 minutes, he had 5 consecutive steals in his first spurt. That kind of defense is unheard of. That is first team NBA defense by Asar Thompson. He's that good. He's that level of player on the perimeter. And that's who the Pistons have starting at small forward. That's why I think that Asar Thompson going forward is an intriguing option at small forward. And I'll get to this later again with the Jaden Ivey injury, but that's one of the things that I want to see with the team is how can Asar grow at the 3? Even if you're starting THJ at the 2 now, if Ivey comes back, can Asar take that role to still make it gel with Ivey at the 3? That's something that's really interesting to monitor going forward. But Asar Thompson, man, he was such a defensive beast tonight. And you have no shortage of it either. Ron Holland is playing great defense. Cade is playing great defense. JB Bickerstaff has these guys playing amazing defense. Nothing comes easy to the Timberwolves. If you actually watch Pistons games, right, there's maybe a spurt of like 6 or 7 minutes that other teams go on huge runs where the Pistons, they play lackluster defense. They're not playing well on pick and roll defense. And that's when the other team capitalized. If you look today, pretty much every time the Timberwolves had a pick and roll, Duren double teamed the ball handler. And when he double teamed the ball handler, that often either led to a deflection, a turnover, or the ball going out of bounds. Or, when he does make the pass, it takes so long for the pass to be made that the defense has a chance to rotate over. And I think that was a great strategy for the Pistons today. JB Bickerstaff has the defense of Detroit looking exactly like how we wanted it to look last year with Troy Weaver and Monty Williams. That was one of the 3 Ds, right? Draft, defense, and development. We're seeing that defense now. And to me, that's a beautiful sight to watch. I'm too young to have watched the 04 Pistons, the going to work Pistons. But as a basketball fan, and a true basketball fan, good defense is one of the most fun things to watch. And I think most of you guys who are watching the video can agree with me. Defense, defense, defense. So that was really fun from the Pistons. Again, NBA, if you're taking notice, put them on national television. Another thing I wanted to focus on that happened in this wasn't necessarily through this game, but I was able to skim the other games so far from this week. Again, like I mentioned, I was on vacation, so I couldn't sit down and fully take notes on each of them. Isaiah Stewart is worth every penny we signed him to. I know there was a lot of controversy when the contract initially happened. Maybe what Troy Weaver and Monty Williams had envisioned for Isaiah Stewart didn't come out to fruition. Stu starting at the 4, looking back now, was a crazy idea. Don't know why anyone thought that that was a good idea. And I think most of us Pistons fans too were pretty big skeptics of it. I mean, just because you can shoot doesn't mean that you should be at the 4. There's a lot of other things that go into it. But man, Isaiah Stewart is the culture guy of the Pistons. The other teams, every successful team has one. Okay, you look at the Heat back in the day; it was Udonis Haslem. The Thunder, when they were good, they had Nick Collison. The Warriors, they have Draymond Green. Every team has their culture guy, and that's who the Pistons got in Isaiah Stewart. And to me, that's worth every little penny. You see, when there are times when the defense is starting to go asleep, like I mentioned earlier, when you inject Isaiah Stewart into the game, it's effort, effort, effort. Every single play, high motor, high effort. And whatever he doesn't have in height, he compensates for it with that motor. And that's so valuable to this team, in my opinion. I mean, Stewart, like out of the young core, Isaiah Stewart's the oldest one. And he is the leader of that defense, in my opinion. I mean, you have Tobias, you have Malik Beasley, you have Tim Hardaway, great presences in the locker room. They more so contribute on the offensive side. On the defensive side of the ball, your anchor is Beef Stew. And I think that that's something that the Pistons don't just have now, but they have that going forward. This is someone that you need to keep on the team. He's not a piece that you can throw away. Isaiah Stewart embodies everything that Detroit does. That's how good he is. That's how much he means to the city, and that's how much I think he means to this team. So that's just something I wanted to harp on because I feel like that's someone that we haven't talked about too much this year. If we look at the center position, it's mainly been, oh my God, Paul Reed, he either looks insane one night, like why are we not playing him more? Or he looks like, why is this guy an NBA player? And then Duren, his lack of a motor throughout the entire season. But then some games he turns it on and he looks like the greatest center of all time. Those are the two things that we focused on. But I think we need to give more appreciation to Isaiah Stewart for the job that he does. Because for me, especially the last game, it really showed. There were multiple possessions against Charlotte. That was a defensive grind fest of a game. And Isaiah Stewart was the anchor of the defense. Every time you needed to stop on defense, every time someone beat someone off the dribble, Isaiah Stewart was there. He swatted the ball. And it led to transition. And the Pistons are getting so many transition opportunities because of guys like Isaiah Stewart in the paint, and then also on the perimeter with Ron Holland, Asar Thompson. So I just wanted to give flowers to Beef Stew there. So now getting to the most depressing part of the week, and that is the Jaden Ivey injury. So when I first saw the injury, I know Jaden Ivey was diving for the ball. I was really, really hoping that Ivey would just get up and shake it off. But pretty much within seconds of the injury happening, I think everyone in the arena knew that it wasn't something small. And you could kind of hear it. You know, you kind of heard that the breath was sucked out of LCA when Jaden Ivey went down. And that's obviously not only a huge loss for this team, but it's also a huge loss for Ivey's development going forward. Because this is, worst case, he misses the year, right? Well, I'll talk about the diagnosis in a second. Worst case, he misses the year, and then that year is gone. And basically, it's 2 years gone, in my opinion, because we had Killian Hayes starting over this guy last year, and that was screwing up his development. And then this year, this injury happened. So just so unfortunate. Could not happen to a worse guy either. Jaden Ivey is like Isaiah Stewart. He's everything that this city embodies. And, it's just so terrible that this happened, his mom played for the Detroit Shock. His grandfather played for the Lions. He has so many local ties. It's just so terrible. But for him specifically, looking at the injury, I believe that he had a fractured fibula. And according to the medical report, the Twitter doctors, as they call themselves, that was probably the best case scenario for him, which is good. I'm glad. I'll tell you this. I'm glad that there's no ligament damage, because one thing about Ivey is his best trait is his explosiveness. So I'm glad that there's no ligament damage. And, I don't think that this is going to have any kind of long-term impact on Jaden Ivey reaching his full potential. With that being said, though, I do think it's going to hurt his growth and development because of the rehab process coming back from the injury, and then it's kind of starting over a little bit from ground zero. So, Ivey will figure that out. He's a hard worker. He's not going to let this obstacle stop him from getting back to who he is and what he can be. But it's super unfortunate, but also relieving at the same time, knowing that the injury is not bad. I think I saw that the reevaluation period is in 1 month. I highly doubt that he's going to be ready to go in a month. I think that's just a window that they're saying that we'll take a look back at him, see where he is, provide some updates. But yeah, hopefully that reevaluation period, though, it does give us Pistons fans a lot of hope in terms of, maybe he's able to return before even the playoffs start. So, prayers up to J.I. Talking about the Pistons specifically without Ivy, the biggest thing I'm interested in seeing is how Asar at the 3 plays out. So we'll start Cade, Tim Hardaway. By the way, thank God we're done with the Wendell Moore experiment starting. I love Wendell Moore. He's a great energy player off the bench, but he should not be starting for us. I think it's much better that we have Cade, Hardaway, and Asar in the top 3. I'm really intrigued to see how this goes. Because I'll be honest, I have some skepticism with this lineup, just specifically because the only shooting that the only main shooters that you have in the lineup are Tim Hardaway as well as Tobias Harris, and not really Tobias Harris either. I mean, if we're considering Tobias Harris an elite shooter, then we're considering Cade an elite shooter, right? And, he's been shooting the ball well, but you need shooters around Cade for him to be successful. So that's the one thing. But at the same time, the potential on transition, the potential on defense is super appealing to me. So this could either go one of 2 ways. It could either go insanely well. The Pistons suddenly turn a corner and they have one of the best starting offenses in the NBA. And in that case, when Jaden Ivey needs to come back, it doesn't need to be, can Cade and Ivy play with Asar at the 3? It's how can Cade and Ivy play with Asar at the 3, right? So that's one way. The other way is it's a total disaster. The Pistons offense stagnates, and when Jaden Ivey comes back, there needs to be some serious team refinagling to see how you can get the pieces and acquire the pieces so that you can fit those 3 guys somehow in the lineup. Because, I think we're just seeing it's huge. Like, the biggest thing with Asar right now is that he turns the ball over a little bit too much for not being the primary ball handler for the Pistons. But again, I think part of it, he's still a little rusty coming back from the whole blood clot situation. So just give it time, guys. But that's something I'm super excited about looking forward. Finally, I'm sorry we were at 17 minutes. So I'm going a little bit long, but I missed a week. There's a lot to get to. I want to talk about Jimmy Butler for a second, because this is what I've been seeing on Twitter is a lot of Pistons fans are begging Trajan Langdon to trade for Jimmy Butler. My first reaction to that is, are you clinically insane? Cade Cunningham and Jimmy Butler would not work together. They play too similar of a game, in my opinion. First of all, they both need the ball in their hands. It's not like they can play off ball. And in my opinion, if Jimmy Butler comes onto the team, he's not gonna be the second option, right? I think one thing that we've grown accustomed to, whether it was in Chicago or Minnesota or Miami, and I know there was a half season in Philly, but in those 3 places specifically, Jimmy Butler, he has been the number 1 option, and it's proven to work, right? Jimmy is one of my favorite players in the league, by the way. I have to get that out of the way. He's led 2 separate runs to the finals for his teams. For the Pistons, I'll tell you guys this right now. For the Pistons to be successful over the next 10, 15 years, for them to win NBA championships over the next 10 to 15 years, Cade Cunningham needs to be the best player on the team. He's the primary ball handler. He should be your primary scorer, right? That doesn't mean that he has to go out and score the most points every game, but that means that he's the guy who's controlling the game. And he has to be your best player. He has to be your Luka Doncic. Luka has Kyrie. Luka's still the primary ball handler. Everyone else needs to figure out a way to play alongside Cade. And I think that if Jimmy Butler comes in, you're not only complicating the situation of, okay, how do we make sure that Jimmy and Cade fit together? What happens when Ivy comes back? Are you really going to play a lineup of Cade, Ivy, and Jimmy Butler? Pistons fans already didn't think Cade and Ivy would work out together. And now you add Butler to the mix. What do you think is going to happen? It's way more productive for the Pistons to go out and try to add a Miles Turner kind of player. Let Duren sit back a little bit, have someone who can stretch the floor, block some shots at the 5, And that opens things a lot more up for the offense, as well as it improves the defense, and it lets Duren develop a little bit more as well on the bench. So that was my biggest takeaway from that. I could not believe that people were even suggesting that. Let Butler go somewhere like Golden State. That's a perfect fit for him, where he can play alongside with Steph Curry, Buddy Hield, and all those shooters, make life easier for Steph. If you guys watch a Golden State game, Steph basically gets mauled every game, kind of like Cade does. But definitely not a fit for the Pistons. I hope I don't see more Pistons fans rooting for that trade to happen, because that's something that wouldn't work, first of all. And second of all, Trajan knows that, and he's not even, I guarantee you he's not even considering that. But who knows? Maybe I could be 100% wrong. But anyways, guys, that's it for the Pistons news. I know this was a bit of a long video, but I wanted to do a recap over the last week. I should have another video out tomorrow night for a Lions recap against the Vikings. It's a huge game, probably the biggest regular season NFL game over maybe even the last decade. Hopefully the Lions come out on top, and you know what? If they don't, I'll still be here tomorrow. All right, I'll see you guys later. Peace.